Chapter 1. The Perfect Lie. The penthouse glowed under the soft flicker of candlelight, a setting so perfect it should have been in a romance movie. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Miami skyline, the city twinkling like diamonds beneath the night sky. A jazz trio played smooth, sensual notes in the background as guests clinked glasses filled with champagne. Nyla Carter stood near the bar, swirling her wine, her reflection shimmering in the glass of the mirrored wall. She was the epitome of elegance, fitted emerald green dress hugging every curve, deep brown skin glowing under the chandeliers, dark curls cascading down her back in effortless waves. Tonight was a celebration. 10 years in love. 3 years. Polly. One strong foundation, at least that's what it looked like. Kairo Baptiste leaned against the marble counter beside her, sipping whiskey neat. His presence was always grounding, broad shoulders, deep brown eyes that saw too much, a quiet strength that balanced out the chaos Roman sometimes brought into their lives. "You good?" he asked, his voice low, cutting through the jazz and chatter. Nyla smiled, practiced and perfect. Of course. But the pit in her stomach told her otherwise. Across the room, Roman Delgado was laughing, flashing that easy smile that had once been her weakness. The sharp cut of his navy suit accentuated his toned frame, his deep caramel complexion glowing in the dim light. His presence demanded attention, his energy drawing people in like gravity. And her. Nyla's fingers tightened around her wineglass as she watched Roman lean in, his lips brushing the ear of a woman she didn't recognize. Long waves of silky dark hair cascaded down the woman's back. A red dress clung to curves that weren't shy about being noticed. Roman's hand grazed the small of her back, a touch too familiar, too intimate. The world around Nyla dimmed. Kairo followed her gaze, his jaw tightening. "Who the hell is that?" Nyla exhaled slowly, schooling her features. This was their night, their celebration. She refused to let suspicion ruin it. "Probably a client," she murmured, forcing a sip of her wine. "You know how he is." "Yeah," Kairo muttered, his tone sharp. "I do." Still, Nyla held her ground. She wouldn't jump to conclusions, not here, not now. She was no fool. Their relationship wasn't traditional, but that didn't mean she tolerated disrespect. Roman was hers, theirs, and she'd be damned if she let some random woman plant doubt in her mind. But when Roman finally turned, locking eyes with her across the room, something flickered in his gaze. Guilt. And that was the moment Nyla knew. Something was very wrong. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. The Beginning of the End. Nyla kept her expression cool, her grip steady on the stem of her glass as Roman made his way toward her. The jazz trio played on, the hum of conversation filling the penthouse, but all she could hear was the sharp echo of her heels against the marble floor as she turned away from him. "Babe?" Roman's voice was smooth, practiced, full of charm. Too full. He reached for her wrist, but she pulled away with a practiced ease, turning toward the bar instead. "Who was she?" Kairo asked before Nyla could. His voice was calm, but the tension in his shoulders told a different story. Roman exhaled, running, a hand over his freshly lined-up fade. "A client." He glanced at Nyla, his lips curving into a smile that had gotten him out of too many situations. "Baby, you're really going to give me the 3rd degree on our night?" Nyla sipped her wine, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. "I didn't ask you anything," she finally said, tilting her head. But since you're so eager to explain... Roman chuckled, the sound strained. Her name's Delilah. She's investing in one of my projects. Cairo's eyes darkened. Since when do investors need you whispering in their ear? Roman's smile slipped. Don't start, man. I'm not starting anything. Kairo shot back, taking a step closer. I'm just saying, we're out here celebrating our relationship, and you're over there acting like a single man. I'm not, Roman snapped, then lowered his voice when a few guests turned their heads. He looked at Nyla again, his gaze softer now. Look, I wasn't doing anything shady. I was just talking. You know I would never disrespect you like... that. Except Nyla wasn't sure she did know that anymore. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that the tension in her gut was paranoia, that the way his body language shifted when he spoke about Delilah meant nothing. But Nyla had learned to trust her instincts, and right now, her instincts were screaming. We'll talk later, she said, brushing past him, her smile flawless as she greeted a passing guest. She wouldn't let Roman ruin this night. Not yet. But... something told her that it was already too late. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. A Taste of Deception. The party wound down after midnight, but Nyla barely remembered the goodbyes, the hugs, the way people gushed about how beautiful their love was. It was all a blur, drowned out by the dull throb of suspicion. In the back of her mind, Roman had spent the rest of the night glued to her side, kissing her hand, making sure everyone saw that he was hers. But it felt like a performance, a show just convincing enough to pacify the outside world. Kairo saw through it too. By the time they got home, their home, the sleek 3-bedroom penthouse in Brickell with a wraparound balcony and a skyline view, tension filled the air like a storm waiting to break. Roman loosened his tie, rolling his shoulders. You all still mad, huh? Kairo dropped his keys on the counter, giving him a sharp look. Not mad, just not stupid. Roman sighed, rubbing a hand over his jaw. Can we not do this tonight? Nyla slipped off her earrings, her back to them as she carefully placed them in her velvet jewellery box. Breathe. Stay calm. She turned, her voice smooth as silk. You said she's a client? Roman hesitated. Yeah. Then why does Kairo know you're lying? Kairo smirked at that, folding his arms over his broad chest. Roman's jaw clenched. I'm not lying. Nyla stepped closer, heels clicking against the floor. Then tell me why she looked at you like she already knew what you tasted like. Roman scoffed. Oh, come on, Nyla. Kairo laughed under his breath, shaking his head. Wow, that's the best you got? Nyla crossed her arms. If there's nothing going on, say it to my face. Say it like you mean it. Roman's eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment she saw something flicker. Hesitation, guilt. It was gone in a second, replaced by his usual confidence. There's nothing going on. Liar. The words sat heavy between them, unspoken but loud enough to suffocate the room. Nyla studied him for another long moment, then exhaled, stepping back. Fine. Roman blinked, caught off guard. Fine? You heard her, Kairo said, pushing off the counter. She's done asking. Roman watched them both, frustration flashing in his eyes. Y'all are making something out of nothing. Nyla turned away, slipping off her dress as she walked toward the ensuite bathroom. She didn't slam the door, didn't yell, she was too smart for that. Instead, she let the silence do the work. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4. Slipping Through Fingers. Nyla woke to an empty bed. Roman's side was cold, the imprint of his body long faded. She glanced at the clock, 3:42 a.m. The city hummed quietly outside, but the penthouse was still, too still. A deep sigh came from the balcony. Kairo. Slipping out of bed, she wrapped herself in a silk robe and padded toward the glass doors. Outside, Kairo leaned against the railing, a cigarette dangling from his fingers. He wasn't a heavy smoker, only when something was weighing on him. She slid the door open. Couldn't sleep? Kairo took a slow drag, eyes flickering to hers. Neither could you. Nyla stepped beside him, resting her hands against the cool steel of the railing. The Miami skyline stretched before them, endless and glittering, but her world felt smaller tonight, tighter, suffocating. "Where is he?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Kairo exhaled a stream of smoke. "Walked out an hour ago. Didn't say where he was going." Her jaw tensed. She wasn't a fool. Roman had always been a night owl, but lately his late-night disappearances had become routine. Business meetings at odd hours, random errands that couldn't wait until morning. Lies, all. Of them, Kairo studied her, his voice softer now. "You gonna keep pretending this ain't what it looks like?" Nyla let out a humorless laugh, wrapping her arms around herself. "I don't know what's worse, Roman lying to me or me lying to myself." Kairo flicked his cigarette into the ashtray. "You don't deserve this, Nye." She turned to him, searching his face. Kairo had always been her safe space, the calm in Roman's storm. His loyalty never wavered, his love steady even when Roman's wasn't. For the first time the thought crossed her mind. If Roman lost her, would Kairo stay? The question sat between them, unspoken, too dangerous to acknowledge. Kairo shook his, head running a hand over his face. "Come back inside. Ain't no point losing sleep over a man who's already lost you." Nyla didn't argue. She just wished it wasn't the truth. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5. Broken Promises at Sunrise. The scent of coffee filled the penthouse, rich and bold, but Nyla's appetite was non-existent. She stood in the kitchen, staring blankly at the marble countertop, her fingers tracing the edge of her mug. 4:57. And Roman still wasn't home. Kairo sat across from her, scrolling through his phone, the tension between them thick with unspoken words, and then the sound of keys jingling at the door. Nyla's stomach twisted as Roman strolled in, dressed in the same suit from last night, his tie loosened, his collar slightly wrinkled. He looked good, too good for a man who had been working late. "Morning," he said casually, setting his keys down like he hadn't just pulled an all-nighter. Nyla took a slow sip of coffee, schooling her face into a mask of indifference. "Where were you?" Roman sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Had to handle some business." Kairo let out a dry chuckle. "That the new word for cheating?" Roman's jaw tightened. "Ain't nobody cheating." "Then say it again," Kairo challenged, leaning forward. "Say you weren't with her." Roman met his gaze, unreadable. "You don't tell me what to say." The air crackled between them, heavy with a silent war that had been brewing for weeks. Nyla set her cup down carefully. "Roman." His eyes flickered to hers. She didn't raise her voice, didn't cry. She just asked the one question she knew he'd never answer honestly. "Are you sleeping with Delilah?" A muscle in his jaw ticked. "Nyla." "Don't Nyla." "Me!" Her voice was sharp now, cutting through his usual charm. "Just say it. Yes or no? Roman exhaled, shaking his head. It's not like that. Not like that. Nyla felt something inside her crack, a fracture too deep to fix. Kairo pushed back his chair abruptly, shaking his head. This is bullshit. Roman turned on him. Why the fuck are you acting like this is your business? Kairo's lip curled. Because it is. Because I actually give a damn about her. Nyla flinched. Roman scoffed. So that's what this is? You playing the good guy, waiting for me to fuck up so you can slide in? Kairo stood, his entire frame tense, with barely contained anger. I don't have to wait for you to fuck up, Roman. You've been doing that. Nyla closed her eyes. The room was spinning, their voices blurring together. She had spent years loving Roman, building something with him, believing that even in their unconventional relationship, there were still rules. But rules didn't mean shit if only one person followed them. Kairo's voice cut through the haze. You need to make a choice, Nye. Roman stared at her, waiting. Kairo did the same. Two men, one who had her heart, the other who had never broken it. And for the first time, Nyla wasn't sure. Love was enough. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6. The Lies. We tell ourselves. The silence in the kitchen was suffocating. Roman stood across from Nyla, his eyes dark with something unreadable. Kairo, still tense, had taken a step back, but his presence was unmistakable, a reminder that Nyla wasn't alone in this fight, but she still felt alone, because the truth was staring her in the face, and she wasn't ready to accept it. She inhaled sharply, pressing her fingers to her temples. I'm not doing this. Roman's head tilted. Doing what? This. She gestured between them, between him and Kairo, between the mess that had become their life. This whole back and forth, the questions, the suspicions. I'm tired, Roman. Roman stepped toward her, his voice softer now, dangerous in its sweetness. Baby, don't do this. Don't let one misunderstanding undo everything we built. One misunderstanding. Nyla let out a hollow laugh. You don't even respect me enough to tell me the truth. Kairo's stare burned into the side of Roman's head. Because he can't. Roman clenched his jaw. I already told you. Kairo cut him off. Man, shut the fuck up. You're lying, and you know it. Roman turned on him. You got a lot to say for somebody who's supposed to be my boy. Kairo's laugh was cold, humorless. That was before you started making Nyla look stupid. Roman's nostrils flared. You calling her stupid? I'm saying she ain't the one making herself look dumb. That was it. Roman lunged, shoving Kairo back into the kitchen counter. Kairo barely moved, but his entire frame tensed, his hands clenching into fists. For a moment, Nyla thought he'd swing, but he didn't. He just smirked. Go ahead, hit me. Maybe that'll make you feel like less of a piece of shit. Roman's fists flexed at his sides, his chest rising and falling too fast. He wanted to fight, not just Kairo, but the truth, but there was nothing left to fight for. Nyla stepped between them, pressing a firm hand against Roman's chest. Stop! He didn't move, his breathing heavy. She tilted her chin up, forcing herself to hold his gaze. If you walk away right now, don't come back. Kairo exhaled. Roman's entire body stiffened, and for the first time he looked scared. Nyla, don't do that, he murmured, his voice lower now, pleading. I love you. Nyla swallowed the lump in her throat. Love wasn't supposed to feel like this. She stepped back, her arms folding over her chest. Then prove it. Tell me the truth. Roman stared at her for a long, heavy moment. Then, he turned around and walked out the door. No words, no goodbye, just silence. Kairo scoffed under his breath. Coward. Nyla's breath shook as she sat, down at the kitchen island, staring at the spot where Roman had just stood. Kairo pulled out the chair beside her, resting his forearms on the counter. What now? She exhaled slowly. Now, we wait. Wait for what? Nyla gave him a small, tired smile. For Roman to show me who he really is. And something told her she wouldn't have to wait long. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7. When the truth finally comes. Roman didn't come home that night, or the next, or the next. By the fourth day, the anger had settled deep in Nyla's bones, burning low and steady like an ember that refused to die. She had spent years making excuses for him, convincing herself that loving him was enough to keep their foundation solid. But love without trust was just a beautiful lie. Kairo had given her space, watching but not pushing. But she could feel his presence, steady like a shadow, waiting for her to see what he already knew. And then the truth finally came. A text, not from Roman, from Sienna. Girl, tell me why I just saw your man. Nyla's fingers tightened around her phone. She swallowed, then typed back. Where? 3 dots appeared. Then a message popped up. Some hotel in South Beach. He wasn't alone. Nyla's pulse roared in her ears. Send me the location. Kairo walked into the kitchen just as she grabbed her purse. He took one look at her face and his expression darkened. Where are we going? She didn't hesitate. To see Roman for who he really is. The drive to the hotel was quiet. Too quiet. Kairo gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, his jaw clenched so tight it looked like it hurt. You don't have to do this, he said, voice low. Nyla stared straight ahead, heart pounding. Yes, I do, because she needed to see. Needed to erase every last ounce of doubt still clinging to her chest, and when they pulled into the hotel parking lot, her worst fear was waiting for her. Roman, with Delilah. He stood outside the entrance, talking to her like they hadn't built a life together, like he hadn't held Nyla's hand and whispered promises in her ear. And then Delilah laughed, a soft, intimate sound. The kind a woman makes when she knows exactly where she stands in a man's life. Nyla felt her breath leave her body. Kairo tensed beside her. Say the word, and we leave. Nyla didn't answer, because she had already unbuckled her seatbelt and Roman. Roman had just turned, his face paled when he saw her, and just like that the truth was standing right in front of her, loud, clear, unforgivable. End of Chapter 7. Chapter 8. The Confrontation. For a moment the world went silent. No honking cars, no murmuring tourists, no rustling ocean breeze, just Nyla, Roman, and the woman he'd thrown everything away for. Delilah turned first, flicking her dark hair. Over one shoulder, her red lips curving into something that wasn't quite a smirk. Well, damn, she murmured, her voice smooth, sultry. Wasn't expecting company. Roman's body went rigid. Nyla, don't. The single word sliced through the space between them, sharp enough to draw blood. Nyla wasn't yelling. She wasn't crying. She was done. Roman stepped toward her, hands up like he could smooth over the wreckage. Baby, listen. Baby? Nyla let out a hollow laugh, shaking her head. Don't you dare. Her chest ached, but she pushed past it because she refused to be that woman, the one who ignored the signs, who let love blind her to the truth. She turned to Delilah, her eyes cold. How long? Delilah arched a brow, unfazed. You sure you... Wanna know? Kairo shifted beside Nyla, his fists flexing at his sides. Watch your mouth, Delilah tisked. Relax, tattoo boy. Ain't nobody trying to fight. Then answer the question, Nyla snapped, eyes burning. How long? Roman's mouth opened, but Delilah beat him to it. About a year, she said casually, shrugging. Give or take a few months. A year, a whole fucking year. Nyla's heart cracked wide open, but she refused to let it show. Not in front of them, not here. Instead, she exhaled slowly, then turned to Roman. You let me sit at home playing the perfect girlfriend while you were out here screwing her. Roman's expression twisted. It wasn't like that. Then how was it? He hesitated. Too long. That was all the answer she needed. Nyla took a step back, her pulse roaring in her ears. You know what's funny? She said, her voice eerily calm. I could have forgiven the cheating. Roman's brows furrowed. What? But the lies. She shook her head, swallowing the lump in her throat. The manipulation, the gaslighting, that's what I can't come back from. Roman reached for her. Nyla, don't do this. Kairo moved fast. 1 second he was beside her, the next he was in front of her, shoving Roman back with both hands. You don't get to touch her, Kairo growled. Roman stumbled but didn't swing, didn't retaliate. Because for the first time, he knew he'd lost. Nyla inhaled sharply, stepping past them both. She looked Roman in the eye, her expression blank. You deserve each other. Then, she turned and walked away. Roman didn't chase her, and that told her everything she needed to know. End of Chapter 8. Chapter 9. Picking up the pieces. Nyla didn't cry. Not in the car. Not when Kairo pulled into the parking garage of the penthouse. Not when she stepped into their home, her home, and felt the overwhelming weight of Roman's absence. She just stood in the centre of the living room, staring at the couch where he used to lay after long nights, the kitchen counter where he used to steal kisses while she made coffee, the bedroom where he used to whisper promises that now felt like fucking jokes. It should have shattered her. But instead she felt numb. Kairo leaned against the doorframe, watching her closely. You want me to stay? Nyla turned to him, her eyes searching his face. Kairo had always been there. Steady. Solid. But tonight, there was something else in his gaze. Something deeper than friendship, stronger than loyalty. She wasn't ready for that. Not yet. She shook her head. I just need a minute. Kairo hesitated, but then nodded, pushing off the wall. Call me if you need me. She watched him leave, listened as the door shut softly behind him. Then finally, she let herself breathe, and with that breath came the truth. This was over. No fixing it. No second chances. No more us. And for the first time since she met Roman Delgado, Nyla Carter was free. End of Chapter 9. Chapter 10. The Aftermath. 2 weeks. That's how long it had been since Nyla had walked away from Roman in front of that damn hotel. 2 weeks of silence. No calls, no texts, no half-assed attempts to fix what couldn't be fixed. At first she thought it would break her. But now? Now she was realizing that the real pain had been staying. She sat in her office, scrolling through event proposals, pretending to focus. But her mind wasn't on floral arrangements or catering menus. It was on the fact that, for the first time in years, she wasn't waiting on Roman's next move. She was making her own. A soft knock on her door broke her thoughts. "Come in." Sienna stepped inside, her expression cautious. "Hey, you free?" Nyla sighed, leaning back in her chair. "If you're here to check on me, I promise I'm fine." Sienna gave her a look. "Girl, you walked away from a 10-year relationship. Ain't no way you just fine." Nyla's lips pressed together. "I'm not falling apart, if that's what you mean." Sienna studied her, then dropped into the chair across from her desk. "And what about Kairo?" Nyla stiffened. "What about him?" Sienna arched a brow. "Don't play dumb, Ny. You think I don't see the way he looks at you?" Heat crept up Nyla's neck, but she shook her head. "It's not like that." Sienna smirked. "Maybe not yet, but don't lie to yourself, it could be." Nyla exhaled, rubbing her temples. She didn't want to think about that. Not now, but later when she was alone in bed staring at the ceiling. She'd remember the way Kairo had always been there, and she'd wonder if he was still waiting for her to see it. End of Chapter 10. Chapter 11. When the lines start to blur. It started small. A text from Kairo in the morning. "You good?" A coffee left on her desk when she got to work. Her favourite. A knock on her door after a long day, followed by his familiar deep voice. "I brought dinner." "You need to eat." It wasn't romantic. Not technically, but it was something steady, something safe. And that scared Nyla more than losing Roman ever did, because this wasn't just friendship anymore. It was something else. And the first time she truly felt it, truly saw it, was on a random Friday night, when Kairo showed up at her place with takeout and a movie. She had been working late, drowning in spreadsheets and vendor contracts. She hadn't even noticed the time until Cairo's knock pulled her out of her trance. "You didn't eat, did you?" he asked, stepping inside before she could argue. Nyla sighed, shutting her laptop. "I was busy." Kairo gave her a look, then held up a bag from her favourite tie spot. "Well, now you're not." She rolled her eyes but took the bag anyway, her stomach betraying her with a loud growl. Kairo chuckled. "See? I know you better than you know yourself." That shouldn't have made her heart skip, but it did. They ate on the couch, the TV playing some movie neither of them were really watching. And at some point, she wasn't sure when, she ended up leaning against him, her body fitting against his like it belonged there. And Kairo. He didn't move, didn't push, didn't do anything but let her rest, his hand resting lightly on her thigh, his touch steady. Warm. Right. And for the first time since Roman walked out, Nyla felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Wanted, not chased, not manipulated, not controlled, just wanted. By a man who had never given her a reason to doubt him, a man who was still waiting, for her, for this, for them. And maybe, just maybe, she was finally ready to see it. End of Chapter 11. Chapter 12. The first time. Nyla should have stopped this before it started. The stolen glances, the quiet understanding, the way Cairo's hand rested on her thigh like it had every right to be there. This was new territory, and yet it didn't feel new at all. It felt inevitable. She didn't know who moved first. 1 second she was leaning into him, letting herself soak in the comfort of his warmth, the steady rise and fall of his chest. The next, his lips were on hers. It wasn't hesitant. It wasn't rushed. It was deliberate, certain, like he had been waiting for this moment, waiting for her. And instead of pulling away, instead of stopping to overthink, Nyla let him have her. Her fingers tangled in his locks, tugging just enough to make him groan against her mouth. His hands gripped her waist, firm and possessive, pulling her onto his lap like she belonged there. And maybe she did. Maybe she always had. She should have been nervous. Should have thought about Roman, about the history, about the rules they were crossing. But all she could think about was the way Kairo was kissing her like he'd been dying to do it for years. Like he wasn't afraid to show her how much he wanted this. Wanted her. His hands slid beneath her shirt, fingertips ghosting over her skin, sending a shiver down her spine. "Nyla," he murmured against her lips, his breath warm, ragged. She didn't let him finish. She kissed him again, deeper, hungrier, done pretending, and just like that, the lines were gone. No more waiting, no more questions, just them, and this was only the beginning. End of Chapter 12. Chapter 13. The morning after Nyla woke up to the scent of coffee. For a brief moment, in that hazy space between sleep and reality, she expected to turn over and see Roman. But it wasn't Roman. It was Kairo. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel regret. Stretching beneath the sheets, she let her fingers trace the empty space beside her. The sheets were still warm. He hadn't been gone long. She sat up, clutching the covers to her chest, scanning the room. Her room. Their room now. No, not yet, but maybe someday. The door creaked open, and Kairo walked in, shirtless, holding 2 mugs of coffee. His tattoos stretched over his toned chest, a slow smirk forming when he saw her watching him. "Morning, pretty girl." Her stomach did a little flip. She rolled her eyes, taking the mug he offered. "Don't start." He chuckled, sitting on the edge of the bed, one hand grazing her bare thigh. Too late. She took a sip of coffee, using it as an excuse to not react to his touch. "You didn't have to make this." "You didn't have to let me stay," he countered, his voice softer now. Nyla exhaled, setting the mug down on the nightstand. "Last night," Kairo cut her off, "was real. Don't overthink it." Her chest tightened. He knew her too well. "I'm not," she lied. Kairo smirked, leaning in, brushing a kiss against her bare shoulder. "Yeah, you are." Her breath hitched. She hated that he was right, but maybe, for once, she didn't need to think. Maybe she just needed to feel. So she kissed him, again, and this time she didn't stop. End of Chapter 13. Past won't stay buried. For the first time in weeks, Nyla felt peace. She and Kairo had spent the last 2 days wrapped up in each other, moving through the world like nothing else existed. Work, ignored. Texts, unread. Roman, a ghost. Or at least he was supposed to be. But ghosts don't stay buried forever. Nyla had just finished throwing on a robe when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it lazily, expecting Sienna, or maybe Kairo sending another "you hungry." Text from the next room. Instead, the name on the screen knocked the air from her lungs. Roman. She just stared, fingers hovering over the screen. She should ignore it, should block him, throw the phone across the damn room, pretend he didn't exist. But she didn't. Instead, she answered. "What do you want?" Silence. A slow inhale on the other end. Then, "I fucked up, Ni." Her grip tightened on the phone. No shit, Roman. She should hang up, but she didn't. Instead, she waited. "I miss you," Roman continued, his voice low, rough, familiar. "I miss us." Her throat tightened. Too little, too late. She closed her eyes. "Roman, I love you, Nyla." A sharp inhale filled her lungs. Then, Kairo's voice from the doorway. "You don't gotta listen to that bullshit." She turned. He stood there, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, gaze steady. Roman was still on the line. still waiting. And for the first time, Nyla realised she wasn't. She exhaled, slow and certain, then lifted the phone back to her ear. "Goodbye, Roman." And then she hung up. For good. End of Chapter 14. Chapter 15. A New Beginning. The moment Nyla hung up, something shifted. Like a door slamming shut. Like a weight lifting from her chest. She stared at her phone for a moment, half expecting it to ring again, half expecting Roman to show up at her door, spinning lies wrapped in love. But nothing happened, just silence. And for the first time in a long time, it wasn't suffocating. It was freeing. Kairo hadn't moved. He just stood there, arms crossed, waiting, watching. "You okay?" he asked. Nyla inhaled, nodded. "Yeah, I am." And she meant it. Kairo studied her for a long moment, like he was searching for something in her face. Maybe doubt, maybe hesitation. He wouldn't find either. Instead of speaking, he just walked over to her, slow and sure. His hands found her waist, his touch steady, grounding. "You sure?" he murmured, eyes locked on hers. Nyla exhaled, reaching up to trace her fingers along his jaw. For the first time in a long time, yeah. A slow smirk curved Kairo's lips. Good. Then he kissed her. Soft, slow, certain, like a promise. Like a beginning. Like something real. And this time, Nyla didn't hesitate to kiss him back. Because this was what love was supposed to feel like. The end. Thank you for listening to Loving Him Wasn't Enough. A story of passion, betrayal, and learning when love just isn't enough. If you enjoyed this messy, drama-filled journey, make sure to subscribe to our channel Beyond Monogamy Audiobooks. And follow for more non-monogamous romance audiobooks, packed with emotional twists, steamy moments, and unforgettable characters. Before we go, we've got some discussion questions for you to sit with. Questions that just might hit a little too close to home. Take a moment to reflect, share your thoughts, and don't be afraid to start the conversation. Because in love and in life, the drama never really ends. Would you be able to forgive a partner who cheated, even if they said they still loved you? What would it take for trust to be rebuilt, if ever? Have you ever stayed in a relationship longer than you should have, just because you believed love was enough? What signs did you ignore, and what finally pushed you to act? Do you think poly relationships require a stronger sense of trust and communication than monogamous ones? Why or why not? How do you personally define loyalty in a relationship? Is it about exclusivity, honesty, emotional availability, or something else? Can someone truly love two people and still be faithful to them both? What does that look like in real life versus fantasy? What role does emotional safety play in your own relationships? Have you ever had a Kairo in your life? Someone who was there quietly, patiently, without expectation? Do you believe closure comes from the other person or from choosing yourself? If someone wronged you deeply, would hearing "I'm sorry" make a difference? Leave your comments below. Until next time, have a great day.